Good evening, everybody, and evening it already is. You'll only have to wait a short while for some genuine Nova Scotian hospitality, a lobster dinner, bagpipes, and the whole kit and caboodle. These chats, for those people who've been to Halifax before, you will know, and for those who haven't, I'm just going to briefly explain. They last 30 minutes. It goes in a flash. And we will talk probably together for about 20 minutes and then open it up for some questions. I urge you to be pithy and precise and short, and above all, not long-winded in any questions, comments you have. But they will be very welcome. If you can state your name and affiliation, that will add to the proceedings very nicely.
These people all look like they're ready to get to their lobsters, so
well,
we need to be succinct. We're the only thing standing between them and their lobsters.
Absolutely. So. Well, we shall be quick and hopefully productive, as well as being quick. It's a great pleasure to welcome Senator Risch to Halifax, to the Halifax International Security Forum. Senator Risch is a senator from the state of Idaho, and he's been in the Senate since 2009 and became chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee this year. Now, when I was looking at the senator's bio, I was pleasantly surprised to see that we have something in common, because I, like you, Senator, studied in Moscow. I studied Russian at the Pushkin Institute of Russian Language in Moscow, and you studied at the University of Idaho's department in Moscow.
Moscow, Idaho.
Moscow, Idaho. And I had
much
no idea.
Much like the real thing.
It was very confusing for a while, but I thought it all made sense. Studied in Moscow and later became chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. It's a perfect CV. There isn't a Beijing, Idaho, no?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
Well, this is partly what we're about to discuss.
Right.
We've just come off two fascinating panels where China has featured very strongly for understandable reasons. And we can bounce off some of the thoughts that came out of that panel, and members of the audience are very welcome to bounce off that too in any questions. But I wanted to refer to a speech that you made just last week in Washington, D.C., and you referred to something which really struck me because it seemed to encapsulate everything about the nature of the problem and the paucity, perhaps, of our response hitherto to that problem with China. And that was about a company in your own state called Micron Technologies, the world's second largest memory chip maker, had its technology stolen by a Chinese state company. Now, you might have thought that's the end of the story, and bad enough it would be. That's just the beginning. The company then patented the stolen technology in China and then sued Micron Technologies for patent infringement.
In China?
In China.
Before a Chinese court?
In the Chinese court.
Before a Chinese judge?
Right, and to me that looks like the behavior of people who believe they can get away with anything. I mean, how do we persuade them that they can't?
Well, first of all, let me start by saying, Peter, that was a great film that you showed to start with. That bringing us forward to today and then looking into the future. I'll tell you, there's a lot of thought going to go into that. You did miss one thing in there. I think you should have had a Taylor Swift piece right at the turning point here to where we are today. In response to your question, this situation with Micron is really the poster child for what's happening in the world today. I had the good fortune, I guess, of traveling in China in 1983, and as I looked around, I thought, you know, there was well over 1 billion people at that time, and I looked around and looked at what they didn't have, and thought, you know, this is never going to be a problem in my lifetime. And boy, how wrong I was. I mean, they've come centuries in the time since 1983. And it's really happened, for most people, for the average person, kind of under the radar. By the time they showed up, as they have in recent years, you got to ask yourself, how'd this happen? How'd they get here? Well, how they got here was by going out and appropriating the best that the first world countries had, bringing it into their country and doing it under what they call legally by passing laws that said if you're going to do business here, you got to have a full partner, you got to turn over all your information to them. And then they did it the way they've done it with Micron Technology, and that is if you can't get it any other way, you just go steal it. And this got to stop. And that is one of the things that's causing us the real difficulties in reaching a trade agreement. Everybody's wringing their hands about a trade agreement between the U.S. and China. And they're all talking about tariffs and the numbers of this coming in, that coming in. But it's also about, to the president's credit, it is also about IP. Intellectual property is the currency of the 21st century. And IP has value just like any hard assets do. And the Chinese are one of the few on the planet that have not adopted international norms and rule of law and enforcement of rule of law that allows for people who create this IP to be protected and for it to be licensed or sold or what have you. And the Chinese absolutely refuse to do that. And to the president's credit, he's insisting on that. And if we don't get this right at this critical time while we're negotiating this trade agreement with China, this is going to be a long 21st century for everybody. And so to the president's credit, he is insisting on that, and we're encouraging him. I mean this has got to be gotten right. I sat down with the Chinese ambassador and gave him what for over this Micron situation. And it was at a situation that was supposed to be a different situation than what it was. And I thought that he would be kind of taken aback by the whole thing. But he was totally informed on the whole situation with Micron. And after I railed on him for a long time, he smiled, and then he said, well, you know, he says, what's happened here, he says, you know, you Americans, you've been at this patent thing for a long, long time, and gosh, we're just new at this, and you have to be patient with us, you know. That was his answer. And my reaction to him was the reaction just went through the room. I said, get out of here, you know. I mean, these guys knew exactly what they were doing. They actually took a run at Micron trying to buy it, because if you read China 2025, as we all know, microchips are absolutely critical to moving forward on virtually everything, and China is way behind on microchip development and production. So they tried to they actually took a brief run at Micron, and that wasn't going to happen. The company itself said no. Everybody in Idaho, where the company's headquarters are, said this is ridiculous, and it would have never gotten past CFIUS anyway. So in any event, they then did what they did, and they said, well, you won't sell it to us, we'll just take it. And that's what they did. So this is a big problem, and we've got to insist. The world has to insist, not America, but the world has to insist.
Well, that was what I was going to come on to. I mean, the United States obviously has enormous economic power of its own, but if it works with its allies in Europe and in Asia, then is that something that President Trump is going to be doing on this, or is it really quite a unilateral? The United States is pushing its own simple, particular agenda to get a deal for the U.S.?
No. All we ask is that they adopt international norms, not the United States' norms, but international norms. I mean, every country in the world respects IP. If you don't, it's a serious problem. So yes, we're insisting on it, but certainly not saying it's the American way only.
No, not at all. What I meant is that in terms of actually trying to get the Chinese to play ball on this, if the United States works with Canada, with Great Britain, with the European Union, with Japan, with Korea, that's a much bigger proposition.
It is.
For the Chinese to have to deal with.
And we're doing our best to communicate that to the Chinese, and I think that they get it. We're not saying create a patent system that protects America. We're saying a patent system that protects any IP from any country, regardless of who they are, friend, enemy, or whatever. You got to operate under international norms.
Right, and the theft of international property is one component of a bigger picture in terms of our strategy towards China. And you may have heard Peter Van Prague, president of Halifax Forum, say that one of the things we're doing is trying to build, in 2020, a coherent strategy towards China, not just the United States, but for all its allies in Europe and in Asia. And one other part of that, of course, is human rights and democracy. And just this week, the Senate unanimously passed the Human Rights and Democracy Act. The House of Representatives passed it 417 to 1. I really don't understand the one who didn't, but...
I've had fun poking my friends in the House. Right. I tell them they couldn't get it unanimous.
I mean, there's always one. It looks like, or it started to look like the president was going to sign it. And then I saw the comments today from President Trump that he said he's standing with the people of Hong Kong, but he also said he was standing with President Xi Jinping. So what's going to happen? And if he doesn't sign it, will you push it through anyway?
This is easily explainable. The President of the United States has a personal relationship with President Xi. And obviously, it's difficult when you do have a personal relationship with someone to be being as tough as what the Hong Kong Act is. And so I think he's going to be talking with Xi. And as we all know, the Chinese government is virtually apoplectic over this act by the United States. But look, they shouldn't be surprised. We're all about human rights. That's who we are. That's what we are. Above all, we believe in democracy. We believe in open markets. We believe in all these things. But human rights are right at the top of the list. And we see what's happening in Hong Kong, where China made the agreement that they did with your country when they had the turnover, and now they're saying, oh, it's a historical document. These weren't just words; these were promises that were made to these people that they would get an autonomous government and have the freedoms that they have. And now, simply by trying to exercise those, they're getting hit over the head by the Chinese government. And look, we're not happy about this, and they may not be happy about it, but we're not either, and we're not going to stand by and watch it. I expect that the bill will become law.
I think a lot of people here will be very pleased to hear you say that. China is one very important issue in the world. We have very limited time. One of the things that I was going to say, but everybody is so well behaved they would never violate anything I say, that the question about impeachment hearings, and
I'm sorry, look at the time.
But this was going to be my point, that there is, surely we can all agree there is no gap in the market for commentary about the impeachment hearing. However, one of the problems...
I knew there was a however.
The however is very much to get to the core issue. Much as the United States is consumed with Ukraine and events surrounding Ukraine, it is 5 years, lest we forget, since Russia annexed Crimea and started its shenanigans in eastern Ukraine, in the Donbass region, Luhansk and Donetsk, and other parts of Ukraine. I mean, here's the question. Has Putin won? Has history just moved on? Are we essentially, when all's said and done, have we conceded that Russia has annexed Crimea, and that's that?
Well, let me start where you started, and that is, I think it would be a mistake to watch cable news from the United States and believe that there's this consumption with the impeachment thing. In my state, in Idaho, and this is true throughout America, maybe not in New York, maybe not in Washington, D.C., people are going about their business, and this is not foremost on people's mind out in the United States. So everybody needs to take a deep breath, and we have a process for doing this. And I know my European friends come in to see me, and they're wringing their hands and they're all worked up. I said, look, we've been through a revolution. We've been through a civil war. We've been through 2 world wars. We've been through terrible financial times in our depression. We're still standing. We're going to be standing when this is over. The Senate is going about its business. We've got lots of things to do. We're not involved in the impeachment thing. The House will do their thing. They'll send it over to us. We've got a process for handling it, and we will. I was amused that the cable TVs were all chortling and wringing their hands on last Wednesday when the impeachment proceedings started and said, oh, we know the president is glued to the TV, and I'm sure he's angry and upset, and he's watching everything. I was with him all day on that Wednesday. He never looked at a TV all day long on Wednesday. So sorry, cable news, but that report was surprisingly inaccurate. In any event, to Putin. Look, I view, being where I am, people talk about Russia, China, Russia, China. These are two very different propositions. And I always tell people, don't put them in the same bucket. You know, when you're dealing with China, generally speaking, all you got to do is hang on to your wallet, and everything will be just fine. On the other hand, when you're dealing with Russia, it is interestingly more difficult because they don't have the same objective. I mean, they're if you say to me, well, what's Russia interested in? From what I see, they're interested in nothing much more than chaos. I mean, they came and interfered with our elections, and of course the media was all on the attention of what they did for Donald Trump. What people don't realize is the attempt to interfere in our elections. I mean, this is the Russian government. They ran ads on the internet for and against Hillary, for and against Trump. And every time we have some kind of upheaval, they're on both sides of it in the United States. It's just chaos. It is all that they seem to be interested in.
Are you worried about a repeat in the 2020 elections?
You know, obviously, we have a First Amendment that allows people to have their say. And so as a result of that, we're pretty wide open, as you know, as far as what people say on the internet. So am I worried? I think right now, people in America are much more, and it was a really good lesson. Don't take what you see on the internet without vetting it some way. I think good thinking people now have a clear understanding that what they're seeing may not be what they're seeing. And when it comes to their attempting to get into our election process, our mechanics, that's not going to happen. We have just outstanding firewalls in place. We have agencies that deal with those kind of attacks that come from overseas. And on top of that, our system in America is very diffuse. They count the votes at the precinct level generally. Then it goes to the county level, then it goes to the state level, then to the national level. For people, anybody, and all the systems are different. There is, sometimes they're paper ballots, sometimes it's a punch, sometimes it's a mark on a piece of paper. It could be any one of a number of things. They're not going to penetrate that. And so I have absolute confidence in the election. As far as the food fight that takes place during it, it's going to be. We're used to this. We're used to this. We'll be just fine.
I'm going to take a couple of questions. Anybody? We can talk about any subject. There's a gentleman up there. I say any subject apart from the impeachment hearings.
Nick Schifrin, PBS NewsHour, Foreign Affairs correspondent. Mr. Chairman, good to see you again. And I think it's important that you're here, so thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Wanted to ask about China and the point that the last panel was getting to at the end, which is the status of U.S. and Western technology versus Chinese technology. We recently did a series. We went to 8 countries. In almost every country, they said that Huawei was cheaper and it was a better package than anything the West offered. And they acknowledged that with that Huawei package came Belt and Road packages. How can the US and the West compete by offering some carrots rather than just sticks when the fact is that for whatever reason, the Huawei technology and the Chinese packages are available now and are cheaper? Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really good question. As you know, the United States has been very active in trying to persuade particularly our allies, but for that matter, the entire world, that they ought to really think twice about using Huawei. Now, why do I say that? I say that for reasons I really can't tell you about. I'm on the Intelligence Committee. I'm number 2 on the Intelligence Committee, and we've been dealing with this since Huawei rolled this out. What I have told every country that visits me and asks that same question, I say, sit down in a skiff with people who have the appropriate clearance and listen to what your national security people, what your intelligence people have to say. And walk out of that room and ask yourself, yeah, it's cheaper, but do we really want to be hooked into a company that is a Chinese company that is controlled absolutely totally controlled by the Communist Party and has access to every bit of information that Huawei has access to. Do you really want to do that? Is it worth the cheaper price to do that? And people have to understand China is an authoritarian country. They don't have companies that can operate by themselves. If the Communist Party walks in and says, we want your books, we want this, we want that, we want your computers, they are entitled to get to every speck of information that they have. And if you're hooked up to Huawei, they have access to it. Stay away from Huawei.
Please.
Matake Kamiya, Professor of International Relations at National Defense Academy of Japan. I think the people in the United States, Americans, Japanese, British, I mean, those people living in the advanced liberal democracies do not want to be controlled by China, do not want to be controlled by an authoritarian regime. But there are many people in the world living in the developing country who wants to get a better life, more convenient life, more prosperous life, and for them, unfortunately or fortunately, China represents an opportunity. And they do not care much about being controlled by China, probably. How do you respond to that kind of things? I mean, probably we have to think seriously about presenting alternative opportunity to those people so that they don't have to be attracted to China.
I hear what you're saying, and you're exactly right on that. There are people who will give up their freedoms in order to have a better standard of living. And those who do that, in my judgment, will wind up with neither, really. Look, the free market capitalist system is the best system, bar none. If you came from another planet, you came here, you weren't political, you didn't know anything, and you went around and said, well, we're going to start a country. What system do we want? What would you look at? You'd look at what we have, all of us who are first world countries that operate in a capitalist system, and you'd say, why is it like this, and why is it like that in other countries? It's capitalism that got us here. If people are willing to subject themselves to that authoritarian control in order to get a slightly better standard of living, there's probably not much you can do about it other than showing them, and they make the free choice. Before I quit, I want to thank you and the South Koreans for sitting down in your country and the South Koreans, which was announced today that you're going to sit down and talk about your security agreement. Both sides have been asking us to get involved, and we got involved. We urge you to sit down together and try to resolve this. Thank you for the talks. Keep at it.
Yeah. The lady up there, please.
Thank you. Ivana Klimper-Sintsadze, a member of the Ukrainian parliament. I'll tell you what the Russian interest is. The Russian interest is to diminish your values, to actually ruin the rules-based order, to ensure that whatever democracy is vulnerable to is exploited to the fullest. And that's the risk that we are all facing from the Russian Federation, and Ukraine is just on the front line of that battle. So my question is here, we have heard that Halifax International Security Forum is planning to work on a comprehensive strategy towards China, and that should encompass all the allies, so to say. My question is, what is the comprehensive strategy towards Russia's aggressive behavior that is ongoing, from the US at least? Thank you.
Well, our strategy has been to look. The days of wars we hope are over, particularly the big wars. People aren't going to go to war over things that they used to go to war over. So, what's a tool in the toolbox? Our tool of choice has been sanctions, and you say, well, that's kind of a slap on the wrist. No, it's not. The sanctions have been incredibly successful in places. Russia's a good example. You know, we put the sanctions on all of the oligarchs there, and a lot of us were skeptics, but that has had real impact on them. We saw one of the oligarchs come in and hire lawyers and come into the United States and try to get the sanctions off. But the best example I can give you is Iran. Life has changed in Iran. we have no quarrel with the Iranian people. They're good people. They're a proud people, the remnant of the Persian population, and they deserve a lot better than what they're getting. But the administration that they have, the government that they have, cannot continue to do what they're doing. And look, no secret, I was absolutely opposed to the JCPOA. I thought that they jumped the gun on that. They did not have the Iranian government to the point of pain that they needed to be if they were going to get them to behave themselves. And so we're back where we are. I'm all in favor of sanctions. I want stronger sanctions. And it's working in Iran. And one of the great unreported news stories really constantly is how bad things are economically in Iran. And the government there cannot sustain, I don't believe, subjecting their people to what they're subjecting them to by their conduct.
I said to you all that this was going to go by in a flash, and it has. So people can actually get to their lobster dinners now. I'd like to ask everybody to join me in thanking the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Risch. Thank you very much.